Artemis Fowl, if you're not familiar with it, is a well-liked young adult urban fantasy sci-fi series about an enjoyably villainous, almost sociopathic 12-year-old boy discovering the strange world of fairies and immediately trying to exploit them through a series of heists and capers. Artemis Fowl, the film, is Sir Kenneth Branagh making a list of what works in those books and then systematically undermining all of it. The film opens with a fundamentally confusing and surprisingly low-budget frame story, both of which are key signs that they were hastily added in post-production to explain plot holes introduced by cutting the runtime as much as possible. Artemis Fowl Sr. is under suspicion for antiquity theft. They're holed up in their mansion, they're unseen, but we do meet Mr. Mulch Diggums, a gruff, gravelly-voiced master thief and lockpicker who happens to be a dwarf. So here's a fun game you can play at home. Think about the range of Hollywood stars that are available to the Disney casting department and who might play such a character. Go on, think about it. Think about your ideal casting for this rough and ready, salt-of-the-earth guy. Have you got one? Okay, great. Well, I bet it wasn't Josh Gad. Yes, notably cuddly, lovable Josh Gad plays hard against type here and falls significantly short. Worse still, the frame story sets him up in an interrogation chamber where he proceeds to explain the entire film's events to someone off screen. So I hope you like his terrible Batman impression, because you'll be hearing it every 5 minutes for the duration of the movie. Back in Fowl Manor and an unspecified amount of time later, we're introduced to Artemis Fowl Jr., the real main character of the film. Frankly, the performance from this kid is bad, but as it's a young actor, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and mostly blame the director and the script. The trouble with this version of the character is that he's not very good. See, I am by no means a stickler for fidelity when it comes to adaptations. I'm not one of those fans who wants everything to be exactly the same. In fact, I like a bold adaptation where they meaningfully change the story to match the medium that it's told in. But in this case, every adaptational change just serves to take something interesting about the original and make it more bland. The cruel and hard-to-love teen protagonist is now like a sweet little boy hero. The mentally unwell mum is just plain dead. The disappeared dad, who's not being there drives the action, basically, is a cozy fairy tale telling thief. Even the clever heist structure of the first book is mostly just treated as a set piece in a newly constructed generic fantasy story that revolves around an ill-defined MacGuffin. All of those changes serve to remove interest from the plot in very clear ways, usually by taking out a character dynamic that serves to introduce tension. Back to Artemis, who is chatting with his therapist at school. He tells him that he's very clever and he doesn't want to follow rules. Thanks for the clear character description, Artemis. I think that's actually your casting notice, not part of the script. This is constant throughout the film. Characters just sit down and tell each other what they think and feel about events that are taking place. It's lazy writing and it's most obvious. So Artemis heads home, finds out that his dad is missing, and gets a phone call from the baddie, Opal Cowboy, who wants a fairy MacGuffin called the Aculus. Butler, Artemis's bodyguard, reveals that Artemis Sr. was researching fairies who are real, and they go to poke around for clues. Here's another bad dialogue trope that's constant in the film. The little dialogue that is exposition-free is mostly cliché action non sequiturs. Butler says here, "Could your father have given you a clue on where to start?" And Artemis replies, "He never told me how to start, but he may have told me how to end." I'm used to dialogue like that in Kingdom Hearts or something, where a line that makes no sense stops and then the widescreen bars come off and I can go and do whatever fetch quest I've been sent on. But to see it in a film is a very sad thing indeed. At this point, Branagh decides it's time to go and see the fairies, so we get a big introduction to Haven City where they live. It's even got an introductory voiceover line from Josh Gad, of course, who theatrically says, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Haven City." Why he's introducing it like that to the MI6 agent that he's talking to in the frame story, I don't know. We meet Holly Short, an officer with the Lower Elements Police, who has a bit of friction with her commanding officer, Root. They're also searching for the Aculus, which we still haven't seen, isn't described, and has an ill-defined purpose. It seems to be something to do with magic, but maybe also alternate universes or dimensions. Branagh doesn't seem to care about it at all. It's never really clear, so don't hold your breath for a reveal, even though it's the central plot device in the film. It's here where the film's casting problem becomes very clear. Gad actually just turns out to be the first sign of trouble. Judi Dench is cast as Root, who is a male character in the original story. Holly Short is played by a young actor the same age as Artemis, instead of being portrayed as young, kind of mid-20s, but older than Artemis in the books. Again, I don't mind getting rid of book stuff, but there's a well-observed pastiche of cop movie tropes in the book. It's about a young female officer being chewed out by and ultimately gaining the respect of a hardened male commanding officer. That's all gone. As I said before, I'm in favour of doing interesting adaptational stuff, and widening out casting is one of those things, but if you omit a key character dynamic as a result, I don't know, you should probably replace it with something else. The same is true of the villain, who in the book is a beautiful, rich and powerful whiz kid whose villainous enterprise is initially a secret. Over time, her public image is corrupted, she falls from grace and goes more mad. That's called a character arc, which seems a bit hard for Branagh and company to understand. So here she's just an ugly, shadowy, hooded bad guy. Another bit of unfortunate casting is Butler, Artemis's bodyguard. He's been recast with a black actor, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to do, and I think the guy's performance would work in a better film. It's just unfortunate that of all of the roles they could have recast, Branagh chose the only character whose race is specifically mentioned as being non-white in the original books. Butler is explicitly stated to be Eurasian, a wide set of ethnic groups typically comprising people with European Chinese ancestry, as it is in his case. They say he passes for Russian as well as he passes for Japanese. That Eurasian group is very rarely seen on screen, so it's notable that in a film absolutely crammed to the gills with white people, Branagh's team recast one of the only non-white roles. Not sure I can call that progressive. Anyways, I'm getting completely off track here, which is probably suitable as we're about 40 minutes into the film, which is kind of where I lost interest. Artemis Fowl was originally planned for cinema release, which changed pretty quickly when COVID rolled around. But judging from the quality of the movie, I'm assuming Disney knew they had a flop on their hands and would have rather put it out on Plus anyway. Still, think about the wonders of the new world we're living in. I was able to watch this at home just days after release, instead of waiting 6 years to half watch it on Film 4 on a lazy Sunday. I decided to give up on watching the rest of the movie, and then I went and told my girlfriend about that. She said she would lose respect for me as a critic and as a human being if I published that review. So I did go back and watch the rest of the film. I really didn't want to, but big shouts to my girlfriend for convincing me otherwise, and yeah, I think I was right. It doesn't get any better. No tension builds up. They split the runtime between two unconvincing lead child actor performances, which kind of makes the whole thing feel a bit like a school play. Some set pieces from the book are basically unconvincingly staged, and then the ending quickly wraps up with liberal use of magic, right where a third act would usually be. I wonder if that's what got cut. Bravely, and questionably, a number of plot threads are left open for a sequel, which is probably the best joke in the film. I've seen a number of Branagh's films as director, and I can't help but feel that he doesn't care about his work. At times, Artemis Fowl feels like Branagh watched a few fantasy films, didn't like them, and then did a perfunctory job of imitating them, complete with the glossy drone shots of rolling green hills and the vaguely defined MacGuffin. Which actually, now I come to think of it, is exactly how his 4 film feels, like a pastiche of a comic book movie from someone who feels active disdain towards the source material. So that's Artemis Fowl, which you can probably tell I didn't like that much. It's available now on Disney Plus, and I highly encourage you to give it a miss. If you did see this terrible film, it would be lovely to commiserate with you in the comments below and think about how it could have been better. And before you head off, just a quick note. Indietrix is about to hit 4,000 subscribers, and I'm really thankful for all of the viewership and engagement from our lovely community over the many years I've been running this. It does feel like a long time. I wanted to check in with you and see if there's any questions you'd like me to answer in an Ask Me Anything video I'm planning on doing. So if you can think of something that I haven't talked about on the channel before that you're interested in knowing about, pop it in the comments and I'll cover it in that video. That's it from me. Have a good one and stay safe out there. Bye for now.